Hi, welcome back to the Post Point Podcast, where today we'll be discussing whether or not it is the billionaires' job to help fund humanitarian issues in the world. I'm Alec Jensen, Editor-in-Chief.
I'm Victor, the videographer. State your position on that. Are you opposing? Do you think they should or shouldn't?
I believe they should.
I don't think they should have to.
Troy Tucker, senior reporter. I think they should.
Justin Ginther, online reporter. I don't think they should.
All right.
And break.
Let's begin yelling.
Good work, everyone. Let's go home.
Oh, you're going to want to stay facing that way.
Oh, fine.
Yeah.
God forbid I want to look
Cheating
at
you.
now.
Yeah. So the reason we got onto this conversation was because of the Australian wildfires, and we began to discuss the, lack of funds that Jeff Bezos donated. I believe it was about $750,000 compared to, Chris Hemsworth from the Thor movies. He donated $1 million, and then you brought up the point of, women are selling their, nude photographs to send donations to the Australian wildfire, and one woman actually raised more money than Jeff Bezos. So we kind of got into this conversation of whether or not it is, the top 1%'s job to fund humanitarian issues, give money back to the world, or is it not their job? So I guess, where would you like to start?
I think I'll just start off with the whole idea of, some of these people kind of worked hard for where they're at now, and in a way you should be able to spend your money and use it however you like, especially if whether you inherited it or it's within the family or you built a business upon kind of your entrepreneur, you just built something from nothing and now you have all this wealth. I think that's yours and yours to do as you should or as you please. Now, I think it becomes a moral thing. Since you have $1 billion and whatnot, would you really notice if you gave $5 million to the wildfires? If especially someone like Jeff Bezos, who probably makes that in a week or even less,
Seconds.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it becomes a moral thing. I think maybe people look at him badly for not donating that much, but at the end of the day, it's his money, and we could all talk about it, but it's kind of weird talking about how another man spends his money, I mean, I guess it's a little different with Jeff Bezos and the position he's in, but I think he should just be able to kind of spend it how he wants, and especially with other celebrities, I mean, so donating $1 million is not just a small amount, even though it's more than Jeff Bezos, I'm pretty sure he can donate a lot more than that. But again, none of these people necessarily have to donate, but they are donating something. I think people should at least appreciate that.
I think, there's 2 points. I think that nobody just earns $1 billion by themselves. I think it's been said before, but nobody just makes $1 billion off of an idea like Amazon. The fact is that a lot of people go into making that $1 billion, and he profits off of his workers, and he profits off of his company, a company that doesn't pay taxes, by the way. So when you hoard so much wealth, $1 billion will never be spent by Jeff Bezos. But Jeff Bezos cannot spend $1 billion, and he has over $70 billion. So he will never run out of money. And so if you had that much money, why would you hold on to it? You're never going to spend that much money. Your family will never spend that much money. The idea that somebody has $1 billion is insane to me. What do you think, Troy?
I think so. the way companies are built is a lot of the money that they make goes back into it. And so he has these billion-dollar, multi-million-dollar companies because he's putting the money he gets back into it. And that's not to say he doesn't have an overwhelming amount of wealth. And this is where my point of, I think, people who reach a certain income threshold. So, for example, if he's earning a couple million, let's say 5 million, right? Or maybe 6 million, even then, a percentage of his income that he gets outside of pushing it back into the company or going to feed his family, like it should be something that is to him disposable and extra, but a portion, once you reach that threshold income, should go to humanitarian efforts or should go to bonds for college students, should be donated to something other than yourself. And I think by putting money back out there, we secure more than just helping people, but our future.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where, Jeff Bezos' money is not Amazon's money. So when you say that a percentage of his profit or the money that he earns goes back into Amazon, I don't think that's the case. I think that he is set. I think that an amount of money that Amazon makes goes back into Amazon. I don't think that Jeff Bezos is spending any money on Amazon anymore. I think that your idea kind of feels more like a mom and pop shop idea, where if you and I opened a bookstore, which let's open a bookstore,
Okay.
and we made, let's say we had a really good year, made $1 million, and we put money back into our store. That's taking money from our pockets to build up our store. But I don't think that Amazon works like that anymore. I think that Amazon is its own, Jeff Bezos isn't putting in his own money. He doesn't have to anymore because they have, people who will put their money on the line, and Amazon has an exorbitant amount of money to put on the line. So I don't think it's taking money out of Jeff Bezos' pockets. It's not taking food off of his table. I think that he just has an exorbitant amount of wealth that he has nothing to do with.
Right.
What do you think, Justin?
Well, I stand with Vic that I don't think anyone should be obligated to donate their money. It's your money, and you should do with it as you please. Especially if you started at the bottom and had to build it up to where it is today. And Jeff Bezos, he does have an absurd amount of money. Absolutely, he does. But that's his money. And I think once we start forcing people to donate, it takes away from those who actually do donate because they want to make a difference, because they want to do good things. Look at Russell Wilson. He donates so much. And he donates so much, not just of his money, his time, trying to help better the community.
Yeah.
And if we say, well, now you're obligated to do it, that takes away from that contribution. It's not as impactful. It's not like, wow, look what he did. And now it's just a case of he's doing that because they're required to. And I think at the end of the day, it's your money. I think like Vic said, let them spend it as they please. Who are we to tell them how they should be spending it? And I think, the way I see it is good on him that he was able to build up that mega corporation. From a moral standpoint, you definitely could argue he should donate some. And he did. And I can see why some people are like, well, he has $70 billion. He donated, only, what was it,
750,000.
Yeah. Which I could definitely see why people are like, what gives? But at the same time, I also look at that $750,000, which, yeah, maybe that doesn't make a dent on him, but that still does make a big impact. $750,000 is $750,000. If I got $750,000, that would make a huge difference for me. And I think that we need to still appreciate he even donated in the first place. He didn't have to. And I know what you're saying about how there was that girl who's selling her photos. I think she got over $1 million now.
Yeah.
She was able to donate over $1 million. And you could definitely say, okay, if she's able to donate more, why can't Jeff donate more? But at the same time, that's his money. And if that's what he chooses to do with it, so be it.
You never know. He could have donated more money by buying her nudes. But also to go along with that,
Nick's on to something.
also to go along with that though, I also feel like maybe that with having $70 billion, yes, he himself could never spend it, but that just like die knowing that you left your family with that much wealth and knowing that like the rest of your family is never gonna have to struggle or anything. That's like a kind of a good and peaceful way to know that like, okay, my family's never gonna have to like really struggle or anything because I built this and I've assured them like a life of like free of like hardships in a way.
But couldn't you leave behind money for your... I understand where you're coming from with that, but I think that you could leave behind, you know, $10 million and still say that you... $10 million is generational wealth. $70 billion? And, like, keep in mind that if he had not gotten a divorce, the reason that he is no longer, like, $100 billionaire is because of the divorce.
Should I sign that prenup?
If you... you can't leave behind, you know, $70 billion and say that that's like, oh, okay, the kids are fine. The kids are okay. You know, they could get a car, they could get a house, they can put food on their table, they never have to work again. You can say the same thing if you left like $20 million. Your grandchildren will still be spending that $1 million, you know? $70 billion is an outrageously just... That is like that you could have a country with $70 billion and that would still be like oh cool, that's a fine country. That country's doing just fine.
Right.
$70 billion in one man's pocket, that's insane. And to think that, you know, that it would be okay for him to leave behind $70 billion for the next generation of Bezos's, that's insane, because they haven't had to do it. I'll give Jeff Bezos this. He built an incredible company, and he has worked to build up, like, from a bookseller to, you know, A to Z. Fine. He's incredible. He did something incredible. He did something that no one, like, ever will do again. But his kids haven't done anything, and his wife didn't do anything, and
She married him.
good for her. The generations of Bezoses will do nothing in this world because Jeff Bezos goes, I guess, like, you can have $70 billion.
Well, who's to say, though, they won't do something with that money?
Yeah.
I mean, you can never know. One of them can grow up and donate a lot of it.
Yeah,
but
one of them could inherit.
Or they could go start their own company, or
Yeah.
they could go on to do
Maybe
their
start a
own
charity.
thing.
But when you hoard wealth within your own community, within your own family, that's, you know, that's the same situation. I hate to bring him up, you know, that idea of, oh, my dad loaned me $1 million. That's not, you know, you're not doing it yourself. You're not building something yourself. You're not doing anything. You're spending your father's money. So I don't think that you can say that, oh, you know, I'm Bob Bezos, my great-great-grandfather was Jeff Bezos, and you know what? I'm going to build, like, shacks in Haiti. But that's just me. No, it's not. That is Jeff Bezos' money that you're building shacks in Haiti with. And even though it is a great humanitarian thing to do, it's still Jeff Bezos' money.
So you feel like the value of someone doing something is detracted from if it does not come from their own resources.
Yes.
So, for example, if I worked for 40 years and then gave away all of my earnings to help humanitarian efforts, rather than receiving, you know, let's say $1 million and handing that out, the 40 years I spent is worth more.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. If you work 40 years and you put, you know, you put away 20% of your paycheck every paycheck,
Yeah.
and then you go, you know, I've put aside this 20% for world hunger. that is absolutely 100% in my mind more noble, more important, and whatever, even if you didn't give, even if it's not $1 million, you worked 40 years for that money.
Right.
And that is more than Jeff Bezos can ever do. Because he didn't, you can't make $1 billion by yourself.
No.
And so if he was to even go, here's $1 billion to the wildfires, that's awesome. That's, that's 1/70th of his wealth.
Couldn't the same thing be said though on the flip side of like him giving $1 billion and them using it to help the fires? Isn't that like less fortunate for them since they inherited his money?
That's what I was thinking as well. Is that now their efforts no longer mean something because they didn't raise that money to help the wildfires. They received it from someone else.
Almost like if Jeff
think
Bezos
it's
was like,
worth-
I'll loan you $1 million. It's like
the turns have tabled.
same. Yeah.
I think it's worth less. I think it is worth less than, I think that this debate was originally, how did somebody selling their nudes give more than Jeff Bezos, one of the richest men to ever exist? I think that she's more noble. I think that she has done more for this, for the, continent of Australia.
I said Africa, didn't
The
you?
continent of Australia than, even if Jeff Bezos did give more money.
Yeah.
I think that she went out of her way. She did something that, a lot of people wouldn't. And she's not making any profit off of that. I don't think. I think it's like 100% donation. But I think that
Take 10% off the top.
yeah, well, and if she did, I mean, that's still 90% of what she made. What is, $750,000 out of Jeff Bezos's, $70 billion? That's like a fraction of a fraction.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure if I answered the question. I'm kind of thinking about that situation now. I mean, I think there's something to be said about that woman. I think that that's an incredible thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, you put yourself out there like that. And I think you could also make the case that, Chris Hemsworth probably should have given more as well. I think that he, Marvel money's good. It's not as good as Jeff Bezos money, but Marvel money's good. So I think that you made a great point earlier where you said that it's their money, but at what point do you think money stops being your money?
That is a fair question. I think you start considering that once you know you are well off enough, firstly, and that you are well off enough not only that you can provide for yourself, but at the very least your current family.
Yeah.
I think that that's the point where you can start going, okay, how much money do I really need? And like in the case with Billionaires, or even like Chris Hemsworth, they're for sure at that point where it's like, I could definitely give away a ton of money.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I would say probably, if you were to argue, where's the point where, you have enough that you don't need to, that you have enough saved up that your family will be well off until you're long dead, then I guess that's where you reach that point.
Yeah.
For me.
I think that's a good question. If I can raise it to the group, what do you think that, let's even give it 2 generations.
Okay.
Let's say that you have this great idea and you start to build your empire, and at your death you are worth let's say $50 billion. So you or no, we can't say you're worth $50 billion. We have to say that you are very well off and you've been, you've donated a lot of your money because you know that you're dying. And so,
Because you know that you're dying.
at what point do you think you could say that, my wife is taken care of, my kids are taken care of, and my kids' kids are taken care of? I'm giving you 2 generations. What do you think that monetary amount is?
Well, it depends.
How flashy you want to be? How many kids you have?
Why do we need to be flashy,
I mean, if you have the money, just like, why not?
Yeah.
Well, that's my whole thing.
You could even, if you set aside probably even $1 billion, you could give your family and then their family an extravagant life with $1 billion. But do you need your family, who will probably not be doing anything? Do they need an extravagant life? Or could you just give them a modest life? And by a modest life, I mean, like, they don't have to work and, but they're not living in, like, mansions, and they're not, like, hanging out with celebrities. They're just living a life with the added benefit that they had a home bought for them, that they have cars bought for them, that they can feed their family, and that they will never go without. What do you think that monetary goal would be?
Well, I think it depends. At least, and I think it's kind of the society, how we treat, at least for me, my whole life, I've been told, you're going to be the man of the house. It's your job to provide for your family. And I look at my father, he didn't have he didn't have a ton of money growing up. And so it was his goal when he had kids to make sure they never had to worry about going hungry. They were always going to have a roof over their heads. They were always going to be able to live a good life, basically.
Sure.
And I think that some people, their definition of a good life is very different. Like you said, a modest life. I mean, for a lot of people, that'd be good enough. But some people might think that living a good life means the mansions and the super rich cars.
I think also a good way to look at it is one of the people who has inherited a bunch of money is now the president of the U.S. So I feel like you can kind of, you can kind of become your own person in a way, even though you have the help of the wealth.
I think that you should probably not use Donald Trump as an example of somebody who has built up their own empire.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
he didn't do it
someone,
himself.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is as someone who's inherited wealth, he's now like a president. But I feel like
I don't think we should go off of. I mean, if you want to talk about Donald Trump.
Oh no, I'm not talking about him specifically. I'm just saying using him as an example of someone, a child from a generation of wealth who inherited it
And now has become very powerful and very wealthy.
But
whether you agree with him or not. It's just more so of the.
We're not saying.
Yeah.
I don't agree with his methods or his.
I just don't understand what you're trying to say.
That can't be accurate.
I think what he's trying to say is like Donald Trump, for example, because we're talking about like how you're leaving money behind for your generations, right?
Yeah.
Donald Trump is someone who received money from his father's success, right? On multiple occasions, many times.
Yeah.
He received a ton of money because his father had basically set him up for it.
Yeah.
And I think what Vic's trying to say is that can seem very appealing, or I guess very beneficial to someone, because it's like, I don't know how to phrase this. Like maybe Jeff might look at that and go, well then hopefully my kids then will be able to
be in like positions of power.
be in positions as well.
I think that this is a different conversation to be had, but I don't think this country can continue to have people who are in the 1% who have exorbitant amounts of wealth run the country, because they are not the people. They are 1%. They are the top 1% of the 1%. You can't have people like Jeff Bezos and Donald Trump and, Michael Bloomberg or Tom Steyer get all of them. You can't have them continue to run the country. The country cannot continue to be run by, people with corporate interests They can't be run by people who, are businessmen, because this country is not a business. It's a country, and it needs to be led by the people, because, there is a disconnect that happens when you don't have to struggle. There's a disconnect between myself and Donald Trump because my mom is on food stamps and he never has been hungry. So there's a disconnect with the billionaires and the millionaires in this country, that they don't understand what it is to struggle. And I think that Donald Trump is the perfect example of somebody who never had to struggle. He had always been set up in a place where he would always... There is not a world where Donald Trump doesn't succeed because he inherited so much money. So I think that we can no longer have this country run by the 1%, the billionaires. It needs to be the people, because it is a democracy by the people for the people, not a democracy by the billion and trillionaires for the billion and trillionaires.
All right, we're running out of time, so I'm going to cut that off there. All right, thank you all for watching. Let us know what your thoughts are about this whole subject in the comments below, and we'll see you guys in the next video.